What is going on, everybody? Welcome to a somber Saturday recording of your opening drive. Hopefully, you didn't go play in traffic. But as always, I am Jeremy the Couch Potato. Opposite side of the screen, we have Coach Slate. Um, I would ask you how you've been, but I think we probably know the answer to that.
Yeah, man, it's been a tough day in the Slater household. I think my wife actually took the loss a little harder than I did. Um, I try to be optimistic about situations. Sometimes teams just have your number, and that's the team up north right now. But we still get to play in a playoff game, and so it's like, trying to stay locked in on that. But God, this one sucked, man. This one sucked. I'd ask you how you're doing, but I think I know.
Yeah, I mean, it's just crazy. Like, as the game progressed and you see the way things are flowing and trending, football is a game of process. I guess I don't even think that's the right word for it, but you do certain things to set up other things. You try
Yep.
certain things. And offensively, it honestly looked like a sixth grade football team that runs 28 Dave and then runs
Uh,
40 Paul and then runs a quarterback sneak. And then they try to throw it when little Johnny, the 6-year or the sixth grader, has zero confidence in himself.
yeah.
Um, it just it's wild. Um, and fair warning to everybody as we dive into this. We normally try to stick to I don't want to say a script, but obviously when we do game recaps, we always do good, bad, ugly, that type of thing. Let's make no bones about this.
There's nothing good about this
There
one.
was nothing good about this. So for the YouTube viewers, here's today's script.
Yeah.
It's gonna just be a free flowing breakdown. I mean, obviously the elephant in the room is the offense.
Yeah.
Um, you're a defensive guy, so we'll get
Hmm.
there. But offensively, just a discombobulated. I don't know if there's any other way to put it. We try to keep our mouths clean around here, but it was a shit show.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't know if it was Chip Kelly calling the plays. I assume it was. There's people out there saying it was Day because of all the stretch stuff. Um, First impression, when we address this game today, what is your first impression of what you saw on offense?
Players, not plays, man. Like that's the one thing that keeps echoing in my mind. And then I watch Steve Sarkisian on TV right now, just getting the ball out to his playmakers. Listen, I get it, man. You want to establish yourself as a tougher team. I totally get that. I know that's been a mindset that Coach Day has been trying to instill in the guys this year. And listen, our run game has been night and day difference from what it's been the last couple years. Quinshawn both and Travion both have over 800 yards rushing. Like it's been, we average 177 yards a game, almost 180 yards a game. Like our run game has been very solid with the makeshift offensive line for the last like 6 weeks. But at some point, man, like you got to go win. Like that's what jumps out to me. I got Jeremiah Smith, I got Emeka Ibuka, I got Cardinal Tate. I'm finding a way to get these guys the ball on a consistent basis. And that's what I just didn't see from our play calling. And me, I don't like to bash coaches and call for coaches to be fired or anything like that. Like I get it, it's a tough job, and they had a game plan and the game plan just didn't work. Like those are things that happen. But I was just frustrated with the lack of attempts to get those guys the ball out in space, creative ways, whether it's a jet sweep to Mecca, jet sweep to Jeremiah Smith, like all those things that we could have done and we didn't do. Whether it's some play action stuff, some RPO action, just simple things, find access throws to get those guys the ball, and we just never went to it. And then once Will got into his head, like it was tough. And I do think that hit that Will took earlier in the game, I think that affected him a little bit too. Um, but yeah, man, the first thoughts, man, like just get the ball to your dudes. Bottom line, we were the better team, we were the better athletes. Just get the ball to your dudes. Don't play into their strengths. We said it on here. What are their strengths? The defensive line, right? I admire Carson Hinsman and Austin Saraville to death. I think, they've stepped up for us, but those are arguably the two best D tackles in the country that they're going up against, man. And like we just kept trying to run the ball up the middle. I'm just like, what are we doing? We kept running stretch to the boundary. Like what are we doing? Like why are we doing these things? But I don't get paid millions of dollars to make those decisions. I was just an armchair quarterback today, but those are the first impressions, man. Like get the ball to our guys, man. What about you? What were your first impressions?
It kind of reminded me, everybody talks about, and I said this when I went live at halftime, how the Ohio State offense was a Ferrari. Well, today it looked like Chevy Chase's station wagon and National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. It just, or a Ferrari that the motors got 4 injectors out of it. I mean, something just wasn't right. There were times, and I'm not knocking on players, but we're scheming G. Scott open in situations where we need to be looking at our studs. And G. Scott is a phenomenal player, and that young man is going to change the world.
Yep.
But as you said, players, not plays. Exploit that mismatch with G later in the game, yes. But, you threw it deep to Jeremiah twice, and you drew PIs both times. You had something going with Cardinal Tate, and then toward the end of the game, he had the drop, and it's like, okay, he doesn't exist now.
Yep.
You kept hearing Joel Klatt talk about it. We saw it in previous games this year, where when we run that tight formation with a makeshift offensive line, it doesn't work. You're leaving your guys behind the 8 ball.
Mm-hmm.
Spread them out. We saw them flirt with tempo, and it worked. And then we never tried it again. Michigan's game is what everybody has done against Ohio State this year. They wanted to grind the game, slow the roll. And we didn't exploit anything that was there. So first impressions where it was just clunky.
Yeah.
Obviously, is some of it that the makeshift offensive line caught up with us? Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Is it, like you said, the hit on Will Howard? Let's take a detour. The hit on Will Howard. He didn't lead with the helmet.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it was Tom Moore posted a photo. It looked like a launch.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely did. But at the same time, man, like as a defensive guy, like I would have, if that happened to one of my guys out on the field and they got called for targeting, I would have lost my mind.
Right.
Like I get it. At some point, you got to let the kids play football. I think by the letter of the law, something should have been called, but I'm not going to get upset with a ref for not making that call. But I definitely think it affected Will, because that was a big hit. That was a huge hit, and so I definitely think it affected Will a little bit. But you can't go back and rewrite that stuff, man. To me, we played into every strength that Michigan has, and they don't have many. That is not a good football team that we just lost to.
No.
Their strength is the defensive line. Their strength is trying to grind out ugly wins. Like that's what they wanted to do. I just didn't feel like we did a good enough job of getting the ball to our playmakers. I thought we could have got the ball out in space more, just simple things. I get why we want to establish a run game, and we did get a couple things going in the run game at some point, but at the same time, you've got to do what's going to win you the game. Bottom line, had we come out with the mindset of being aggressive, being able to push the ball downfield, the one deep shot that we threw, what happened? We get pass interference, 15-yard penalty, right? And so those are the things that JJ requires. Those are the things that Emeka require when you push the ball downfield. Take your chances. You've already clinched a playoff spot. What do you have to lose? And that was one of the things that I was expecting to see from Coach Day today. That Georgia mentality from 2 years ago. What do we have to lose? Right? Yeah, okay. I've lost the last 3 games to Michigan. If I lose again, okay. My people are calling for me to be fired anyway. Like, just go let them hang, man, and just have fun. The kids, the players will respect that a lot more than playing tight, right? And I just feel like we did that, man. And if we went out losing, if we went out swinging, and you see Will Howard throwing the ball down the field, and he threw 3 interceptions, but we were just playing aggressive, right? And one of those interceptions caught up to us. They returned it for a pick six or something. You could live with that, but that was bad. It was just bad. I can't think of a time where Michigan State and Virginia Tech immediately pop into my head, right? And it was funny because Michigan did some of the bear front stuff against us today that Virginia Tech and Michigan State did way back then. But those are the first 2 games that pop in my head where the offense did absolutely nothing, right? And so that is the most disappointing part of this whole thing, is that we have the guys and we didn't use them. Yeah. And so it's just like, this is a game, and we'll get into this later, but these are the type of games that it's hard to come back from because you didn't go out swinging. The kids played hard, and I'm not blaming the players at all. The players played hard. You could tell they played with passion. They played with fire. People were saying they didn't show up and they didn't play tough. I'm not buying all that stuff. The dudes showed up. They played hard. Maybe they didn't execute the way that they should have, but we did not put them, in my opinion, in the best position to win the game. And that's, as a coach, that when you have time to marinate and sit on that for a little bit, like, that does not sit well in your gut. Like, knowing at the end of the day, like, what we did not put the players in the best place to be successful. And that is not a fun place to be for the coach. But when you're a player's coach and you're only thinking about the kids, like, what you feel doesn't matter because they went out and did what you were asking them to do, and it didn't work. And so now you have to look at everything. Like, we've been preparing for this all year long, man, and this is what we did. Like, it's tough, man. It's a tough place to be right now. Tough place to be.
Yeah, absolutely. So staying with the offense, we knew we were probably going to get this wasn't a bad Will Howard game. This was pretty abysmal, and that sucks because I have became a massive Will Howard fan.
Huge Will Howard fan.
I think the kid gets it. I think the kid's a leader, and he stomached it again today. He took the responsibility.
Yep. He was emotional in the press conference, almost to tears. Like, it meant something to him.
Yeah, the picks. The first pick was, like you said, we didn't put our guys in a spot to succeed. We're running an out route on the boundary side of the field on 3rd and long and on like our 15-yard line. I mean, I don't know the exact ball plays, but that, to me, yes, you have to throw the ball there. But to me, that's where you dial up that shot play. Take your chances on drawing a PI. You saw it on the PI that Michigan got on Denzel. Denzel was in a great spot. But
he was in a great spot.
But because the ball was underthrown, the receiver had the right to come back to it. That's how they got the PI.
Yeah.
The second pick, Will was late with the ball, but Emeka fell down too. It was just, a perfect storm, I guess you would say. But man, I did not think in any way that we would only score 10 points in this game.
Yeah, man. I didn't think that either. And, obviously, you got to be 11 strong. All the teams got to show up and play, offense, defense, special teams. Will Howard didn't have his best game, right? Well, I think the defense bailed him out quite a bit. The defense got stop after stop after stop, only gave up 13 points. There was that crazy stat in the first half that Fox showed that Michigan had 6 plays for 5 yards and 10 points.
Yep.
Like the defense was doing everything that they could to give the offense opportunities to go score. I will never bash on a kicker or anything like that. I know, I've seen kickers, especially Buckeye kickers, get death threats.
Yeah.
I've seen people, even at the high school level, kicker misses a kick and they're they're on their social media, they're following them back to the bus. Like I've seen some crazy stuff surrounded with kickers. You've got to make them though. Like that's just
Oh
what it
yeah.
comes down to. You've got to find to make those easy chip shot that you should feel confident. We would have been up, we could do the what if game all we want, but the bottom line is we did miss 2 field goals, right? 2 very makeable field goals, especially the second one, and the first one was very easy as well. I get it, the wind, all those different things. But if you add those 3 points there, you add the other 3 points from the second missed field goal, and then you take away one of the, interceptions, right? If Will just eats that one or tries to tuck and run and get something, you're talking about us being up at least 19-10, right? 20 points was more than enough to win this game, obviously.
Oh yeah.
And so like I just didn't man, like those things, like we can talk about the coaching, yes, we'll get into that in a major way. But at the same time, in these games, you need players to step up. And I just feel like Jaden Fielding, God love him, man, praying for him. I hope, his mental health is okay because I know he's probably beating himself up. But we've got to make those kicks, man. That's what you came to Ohio State for. You were their guy. That was the kicker that they wanted, right? Like he knows it. All of Buckeye Nation knows it. You got to make those kicks and those clutch moments. And, you saw it with Michigan. They had 110% confidence in their kicker.
Oh
He
yeah.
was
And that dude's
going
legit.
he was going to make that kick. There was zero doubt about it. We were not worried about him missing any kicks. And so like that part of it sucks that, in all 3 phases, there was just a couple things, the missed tackle and the Mullings long run on 3rd down, which would have gotten us the ball back with like 3 minutes left instead of 45 seconds left. You know what I mean? Like those type of things come back to bite you. And that's just the toughest part of this rivalry, man. You can't have self-inflicted wounds and expect to win.
So yeah, speaking of that, and you kind of led us to special teams. I figured we'll go special teams next. Jaden Fielding, obviously there's not a whole lot else to discuss. But special teams, as much as we've talked about, that squad, that grouping and what they've done this year, as clunky as the offense looked, special teams almost looked clunkier. You had the weird kickoff return that Trey had. You had Caleb not, fair catching or fielding that one punt. Starting field position was atrocious for the offense.
Yeah.
So maybe that's another piece of the puzzle is you never were comfortable where you were at.
Yeah.
But and it's not like, oh my God, we need a special teams coach, because until the NCAA gives you unlimited coaches, you cannot have somebody dedicated just to special teams. I think Ohio State's doing that right, but it's like our guy Nate said that this week, the punt is the most important play, and that falls to special teams too. And when our special teams looked as clunky as it did, you couple that with a clunky offense, that's a terrible combination.
Yeah, it is. And that's, Jim Tressel was there today. Coach Tress was there. Tressel ball would have been in full effect had our special teams been efficient and, effective today. But they weren't. And that's the tough part. I understand that there was wind. There was 15-mile-an-hour wind in the stadium that was messing things up. But at the same time, I also think it's kind of, and I've thought this for a few weeks, but I just kind of kept my mouth shut. I totally get why Caleb Downs is back, returning punts. I get that. But the idea of going away from consistency on kickoff return, I thought that was funny. Like we change our kick returners quite a bit. It's Trey one series, and the next time it's a Mecca, right? I always thought that was funny, right? You put somebody back there that's got a lot of confidence and that's aggressive, like with Brandon Ennis, like having somebody back there that is consistent. He may not break one every single time, but he's gonna get the ball back to the 20, 25, right? If he gets a good one, he's gonna get it close to midfield. And those are the things that you've got to find in that consistency. And I just feel like, we threw Trey back there, and then the next time we have the Mecca, and then we put Trey back out there, and it's like there's just no consistency. And so, like, those are the things that I wish I was in those meeting rooms and would just pick the coach's brains as to why. But yeah, man, special teams definitely bit us in the what today for sure.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, that's two of the facets of the game we've covered. The third facet, the defense. The defense did their job.
Yeah, man.
Defense played really well. Yes, we gave up more rushing yards than we would like. And, as we talked about all week in every episode we did, the team that wins the rushing battle is going to win this game.
Yep.
Now, I do think that Ohio State could have bucked that trend today.
Absolutely.
I think Ohio State could have easily won this game throwing the ball more.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And the reason why is their offense did absolutely nothing when it came to throwing the ball. I think Davis Warren had, like 60 some yards receiving. I haven't looked at the stats or passing. I mean, so it's like we definitely could have won the game. And even, Khalil Mullings had that one good run at the end of the game. But other than that, he still only averaged 3.5 or 6 yards per carry. You know what I mean? He had like 30 carries for 116 yards. Was it ground and pound? Absolutely. Was it 3 yards in a cloud of dust? Absolutely. But if we tackle him when we have two guys free the ball in the backfield, have him wrapped up, if we just do those things, now you're talking about having 25 carries for 80 yards, right? And so there's a little bit of a difference in what it should have been or what it could have been had we just done our job. But I definitely think, we could have won the game. I thought our defense played well. Jack Sawyer stepped up, made some plays when we needed him to. That was a heady play on that throwback that they were trying to throw because he was wide open.
Oh, yeah.
And Jack realized, like, oh, crap, I'm not going to get there. So he just started dropping, saw it at the corner of his eye, goes up and gets a pick, right? That's huge. That was a huge, huge, huge moment. And so I thought the defense did well. Caleb Downs getting that pick, setting us up perfectly. We get nothing out of that. Nothing out of that. Like, if you're a national championship team, you've got to find a way. I feel like if this was the Ohio State team that showed up to Penn State, the Ohio State team that showed up to Indiana, right? We get those points. But for whatever reason, today was not the day that the Buckeyes were going to go out and execute and at a high level. And that's tough, man, because as a defensive guy, when I see the defense doing everything that they can, you hold a team to 13 points, you should win a game.
Absolutely.
Bottom line, you should win the game, right? When you give up, the only touchdown you gave up was, when they had a very short field. Like, you should win the game, and that's just like the most disappointing part. I thought Jim Knowles called a good game. We could talk about tackles for loss. I thought the defensive line played all right. We didn't get a lot of pressure on the quarterback, but we didn't really need to because he didn't really throw the ball efficiently at all. So defense did what they needed to do, man. I thought the secondary played well. I thought, Cody Simon was playing aggressive. I would have liked to see more out of JT. Didn't really see much from him today. But yeah, it was definitely tough, man. Defense played well, good enough to win the game, and we're going to need them to do it in the playoffs again, and I think they will. So.
But hey, silver lining, no IGB penalties.
That was good.
We had the one on Denzel, and that was, just a circumstance penalty, honestly. I don't hold that against him at all. I know a lot of people were talking trash, oh my God, he's so bad. He's the worst corner in America. No, it was just you see it in the NFL all the time. Underthrown balls on purpose to draw that flag. So I don't hold any of this against the defense.
No.
Those guys came to play. Coach Knowles had them ready to go.
Yeah, they did.
I wish, Coach Kelly would have taken the same mentality, as far as go in and just do what you need to do.
Yeah.
So that brings us to the next piece to the puzzle, the coaching side of life. With what we saw today, we've hit on that a little bit already. You know, Coach Day obviously ate the blame after the game, but I don't know. We like you said, we don't want to just say this is why we lost. Why we lost today is because we didn't put our guys in a spot to succeed, and we couldn't overcome the hurdle of we want to be tough and we want to run the ball.
Yep.
Has Ryan Day let this game become a roadblock for him?
Dude, it's a great question, and I think it honestly, like, it would be hard for him, to not let it be a roadblock for him. I mean, this was a guy who went on national television, and you can tell he's being sincere. He's not looking for sympathy or anything like that. But when he was talking about this game, he compared it to the death of his father. Like, we know Coach Day is very prominent in suicide awareness and things like that. Like, his father tragically died. And to compare this game to that, like, I'm sorry, like, there's nothing in this world, Ohio State, Michigan, Olentangy, Liberty, all those things can kick rocks.
Yep.
If I lose my father that way.
Yeah.
Like, none of that means anything to me. But the fact that, he says that this game means a lot to him, like that, like, to put it on that level, it's just like, wow, like, that puts things in perspective. And I know our fan base is not going to want to hear that. I know that they're not going to want to listen to that. Like, oh, he's just trying. No, like, I know enough people that know Coach Day that I feel comfortable in saying, like, they are good humans. If they vouch for him, I believe them. And some of those are current players that vouch for him. There's we got a phone call today from some people down that are on the coaching staff, and my wife was texting back and forth with some people, and they were with the Day family, and his kids are sobbing because they know how hard it's going to be for his father. Like, we can sit here and say all these things. One, people can call for his job, but you can't forget the human side of this thing,
Yep.
man. Like, you can't. And if you do, you need to check yourself. You need to look yourself in the mirror, because there are a lot of things that could go on in this world that are a lot bigger than the game of football. I know today it doesn't seem that way, but there are a lot of things that affect families with this game. Now, for the people that are calling his jobs, like, I get the frustration for his job. I get the frustration. I understand the frustration. It sucks. We're 0-4 the last 4 years. Like, it's not a good place to be. But yeah, I could definitely see why this is a roadblock for him. Same thing with Harbaugh. Urban was a roadblock for Harbaugh, right? What Urban had to leave for Harbaugh to get over the hump, and some other things. But that's just that he was a roadblock. And it's the same thing with Coach Day. And so I don't know what it takes, but I feel for him. But unfortunately, he's the head coach of the craziest fan base in the country. If we are ride or die, but the second things don't go well against that team up north, we come out guns blazing, man. And so, yeah, it's a tough place for him to be right now. I've been a head coach and lost big games, lost games we should have won. It's not a fun place to be. This is just getting me going. I apologize. I will take this back to my little bit of time as a head coach at Harding High School. We lost a game against a rival, and I kid you not, I had parents coming to my house, threatening, my wife having to defend me in the stands, like, people just being disrespectful. My dad's in the stands ready to fight, right? I had a for sale sign. In my front yard on Kenmore Avenue. Like, this, you're talking about Marion, Ohio. right? Little old Marion, Ohio. Now you put that on a huge scale, like imagine what that does to the family. I vividly remember my wife when we saw that for sale sign, when she saw that stuff happening in the stands and the people saying things about myself and the coaching staff, when we know how much we care about those kids, my wife looked me dead in the face and said, "We are done. We are done at this place. We're never going to coach here again." And people forget about that human side of things. My wife and my kids have to live with that.
Yep.
Right. And what did I do? I kept coaching for 3 more years. Right. And so, like, I just want people to really understand that, man. Like, it sucks. It hurts. We can call for his job. Things could happen after the season that we don't know if they're going to happen. People move on from jobs, whatever. We don't know those things. Don't forget the human side of it, man, because he's going through it right now, and so aren't those players that are ride or die for him as well. So it's just a tough place to be, man. It's just tough.
It is 100%, and the Ohio State fan base, is ruthless. I mean, let's call a spade a spade. Like you said, there's a human element to it. Ryan Day is an amazing human being.
Yeah.
When you look at what he does, mental health, you hear the families of players, speak of him. And yes, those same families are probably frustrated as hell tonight.
Absolutely.
But at the end of the day, they still would have his back, I think. Now on the field, we'll dive into that in a minute. You look at what he did for Jim Lachey.
Exactly.
Using his personal private flight hours that are part of his contract to get Jim Lachey back to be able to call this game. Sure, that doesn't seem like a big deal to a lot of people.
No, but if you're a Buckeye fan, it is a big deal because if Jim Lachey's not calling the Ohio State-Michigan game, it's not right. You know what I mean? It's not right. And so for him to do that's a big deal, man. That's a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been cool to have Bobby Carpenter on there.
It would have been.
But until Lachey's ready to go, Lachey has that right. It just something is off. And
for sure,
I feel awful for Ryan Day. I've heard nothing but good from people, like you said. I know people who have met him. I know people whose children have babysat for him. I mean, that type of thing, to where they talk about just how genuine that family is. And he has to take a long look in the mirror though and figure out, how we want this year to finish. Yes, goal number 1 is beat the team up north. Goal number 2 is to win the Big Ten. Those are both gone. But everybody's referred to this season as natty or bust. And guess what? The natty's still on the table.
Yeah. It's still on the table, man. And it's tough, especially obviously right now in this. We just finished a game earlier today, and it's a tough place to be, but we are able to calm ourselves down. This team is still one of the best teams in the country. Bottom line, today wasn't their day. I'm watching Texas play right now. We watched Georgia play yesterday. Ohio State is right on par with every single one of those teams. You saw what we did against Oregon, arguably should have won that game. You saw what we did against Penn State, Indiana, the other playoff teams. Like, we are still a good team. We had a bad showing today. I get it. But I have confidence in that we can right the ship and go win a couple of these playoff games and put ourselves in a position to go win a natty. And so, once we settle down, we can get focused on that. But today's tough for sure. And there's going to be, I'm sure we'll talk about it today. There's going to be some conversations about, job security and all that stuff. But, it's definitely still, the natty is still there for us. We just got to go take advantage of our opportunities, man.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, after a performance like this, with a senior driven squad, and there are some rumors out there of some things that may or may not have happened, in the team facilities, in the locker room, that type of stuff, that make you kind of wonder if there's a division between either the staff and the players, the players and the players. You've got the playoff games are the 20th of December, I think. So you got 3 weeks to get everybody back on the same page. As a former, or not a former, as a coach, and now you've been in some pretty large scale programs.
Mm-hmm.
How do you right the ship?
I honestly, it comes down to what your preseason goals were, right? You guys chose to come back for a reason. Those first two things did not happen, but this is still there for us. You show them, clips of how good they can be, how good they have been, the big wins that they've had, right? And then you correct the mistakes from this game and you say, this is never going to happen again. But before you can even do all that, you look the team dead in the face and you say, I am taking the blame for all of this. This isn't on you. This isn't on Coach Kelly. This isn't on Coach Knowles. This isn't on the special teams. This is on me. I signed off on every decision that was made on Saturday. I signed off on every play call. I signed off on every personnel change. All of those things went through me. I failed. And you got to mean it and you got to be genuine about it. You can't come in there berating the players and all those things. Once the kids feel that sincerity, they will get things turned around. Once they feel that authenticity, that relationship, like those are things that the players need to feel right now. Because right now, in the heat of the moment, there are a lot of questions. There are a lot of frustrations. Why didn't so-and-so get in the ball? Why didn't we do this? Why didn't we do that? You can't defend any of that mess. You go own every last bit of it. You own it to the media. You own it to the alumni. You own it to the player association. Whatever things are out there, you own it to everybody. You take full responsibility for that loss, and the players need to see that. They need to feel that you are being genuine about it. You can't go in there blaming it. No. We're not blaming the wind. We're not blaming that. It's on me, right? And then you got to get back to the basics. You got to get back to the basics of what made you a top 3 program all season long, right? You got to get back to the basics of who Ryan Day is as an offensive mind. And then you have to let the players know we've got nothing to lose. I'm going to let them hang and we are going to play aggressive. And if the kids feel that, again, the buy-in will be there. Right? When you're still able to play in these big situations, these big moments, like you can still cultivate that emotion that could drive you to a national championship. It's still available. But the kids need to feel that authenticity and that you're still all in as well. Because like you said, losing a game like this to Michigan, it's tough. It's a tough place to be. Even just recently, I'll take it back to, the micro with us. We lost to a rival going into going into the playoffs. We lost to a rival, and then we got to turn around. We got to find a way to pick it back up. And I just vividly remember that week, the challenge of the defense and what our goals are and what are doing this and what are we doing here. And like the kids responded because they felt our energy. Now we lost with 9 seconds left, which is just crazy. But those are the things that the kids and the players need to feel. And I think, if Coach Day and the rest of the coaching staff are able to get that message across to the players, I think, things can turn around. It could also go the other way as well. If they don't feel you're sincere, if they don't feel that you're being honest with them, if they don't feel that you were playing the win, things could go south real quick, right? And you could lose the locker room. And then that's not a fun place to be. So you got to make sure your messaging is correct. You got to make sure your actions are even more correct. And they got to see that fire in you because, they're going to depend on it. They're really going to depend on it to really pick themselves up after the Michigan loss.
Yeah. So, with that, as far as that side of life goes, The next elephant in the room is obviously the whole fire Ryan Day mantra that so many people are at. Um, we've talked about it before, and obviously we'll dive a little bit deeper into it now because this wasn't just a loss. If you lose this game 42-35 or in some form of a shootout, but like you said, you let them hang and you're out there just letting it roll, but you had them clinched today. There's no other way around it. This was embarrassing. And
Yeah.
it wasn't embarrassing because of the effort of the players. The
Nope.
players did everything you asked them to do.
Yep.
This loss is on coaching, and there's no other way to put it. Michigan earned it. Don't get me wrong. They did what they needed to do. They rolled their sleeves up. They got to work, and they got it done. But that's a mindset thing, and you see that with Sharon Moore. I'll make fun of him for the whole crying last year and everything like that. But it's easy to see why guys want to go play for him. Um, you know, but it's funny because there are some Michigan fans I know who call Ryan Day cheesy for wanting to focus on the toughness aspect. But Sharon Moore does the exact same things.
Yeah.
The thing that jumped out to me today, as far as the whole is it time to make a coaching change situation, the number of former players who are essentially spearheading this movement now.
Yeah.
But then late tonight, one of the guys we talked about this week, Maurice Claret, comes out and he says, that was me a year ago because I thought it was the cool thing to do. But now that I know Ryan Day and I've been around this program, he's the guy for the job. Maurice and Day go to dinner every Tuesday night. Maurice said that on Big Noon Kickoff today.
Yeah.
So I understand, the foundation of your program is having former players in your hip pocket to be around the program and things like that. So again, focusing on the human side of it, you're Ryan Day. Now, granted, most of the guys I'm seeing clamoring for this are guys who did not play for Ryan Day.
Yeah.
It's a lot of urban era guys.
Yeah.
Well, then you saw Craig Krenzel tweet for the first time in like 4 years today. And kind of throw that out there. Is there a way to, obviously Ryan Day doesn't need to salvage relationships with these guys, but you hear that and you hear, obviously the fan base was ready to fire Ryan Day and Chip Kelly at halftime today. Let's be honest.
Oh yeah, they were.
I got a text message that said, thank you for being a realistic Buckeye fan. I understand our fan base wants perfection and those former players want perfection. But in this day and age of college football, there's more parity than ever.
Yes.
What do you make of so many former players clamoring for that now?
Honestly, it's tough, man. It is, and I've used that word so many times, just because I just on a much micro level, I just see what Ryan Day is going through. I've seen head coaches at the high school level go through this same exact thing where they don't even want to go to the grocery store, right? They don't even want to go to the grocery store. I don't even want to go get gas. I don't even want to see anybody that would know who I am. Like I've just seen it. I've lived it. Like it's just tough when you see the former players coming out and saying those things. That eats at you. That eats at you in a major way. The one thing that's different for Coach Day and Ohio State is that Ohio State has just been good for so long. And so these former players feel like they have a say in things. And as a coach, you feel like you have to listen to it because they do have the winning pedigree. They have, some of them never lost to the team up north. Some of them have won natties. They've seen what it takes, the hard work, the toughness, the grit that you need to have. And so there's a part of you that feels like you need to, listen and kind of, I don't want to say cater, but kind of like give a voice to, right? And I think Coach Day did a great job by bringing Coach or Maurice Clarett back around, because I think, like he said, Maurice Clarett, I stopped following Maurice Clarett on social media because he was one of those guys. Like he was just so negative about the program all the time. And to hear him flip flop is, to me, that says something. That says a lot, actually. And so it's it's hard as a coach to hear those things. And I think, the athletic directors, the president, the alumni association, the board of trustees, all these people who have a say in who the head coach is, they're going to listen to that. They're going to value that input. I saw some tweets from our guy Braxton Miller, my favorite Buckeye of all time. Like, he just got put in the Hall of Fame. You better believe Ross Bjork's going to listen to Braxton Miller if he wants to have a conversation about what the heck is going on. And so, like, that's like the tough spot that we are in. We know that Ryan Day is a great guy. Coach Day is a phenomenal human being, but there is that faction of important people in Buckeye Nation that are, wanting him or wanting us to move on. And so that's going to get in the ears of certain people. And after the season, if things don't go well for us, in the playoffs, there are going to be some tough conversations. And I think the alumni and those prominent figures will be involved in those conversations as well. So it's definitely an extremely hard place to be as a program, as a head coach, when you feel like you've lost a portion of the alumni. And that's, how do you get them back? Right. That's a question you ask yourself. How do I get them back? And, you can do a lot of different things, but, the biggest thing is winning. You just got to go out and win.
Yeah. The one thing that really jumped out to me today is not only a former player, but you also have Drew Essler, who is the director of operations, I believe is technically his title within the 1870 Society.
Oh gosh.
Basically going full scale, like Brian Schottenstein type Twitter rant.
Really?
And he was not just about the coaching, but I mean, he started talking about Ted Carter. He started talking about, it's just wild. Actually, it looks like he might have cleared some of that stuff off. Talking about how the university has failed him and its alumni, and the hires they make and it's so now granted, the 1870 Society is not the number one collective when it comes to all things Ohio State. Let's preface that. They're the ones who were trying to drum up things with the Team Up North collective. But there's just so many people with a voice, and that comes with this day and age, of social media, to where everybody thinks that, they're now granted, like I said, that dude is part of a collective. So I guess, this is a conversation we had before, but it obviously has a little more legs now. If the decision is made to somehow move on, Ryan Day's buyout becomes $37 million in about an hour and a half.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money. I don't care what school you are. I've said it a million times, and I'll say it again until I'm red in the face. If you move on, you cannot screw this up.
Yeah.
We talked before we recorded. It's a stretch, but you almost want to keep at least half of this staff intact.
Yeah.
Because in this day and age of roster management, especially, that's big. You saw it with Alabama.
Yeah.
Because I'm telling you right now, if whoever you bring in shows Brian Hartline the door, Jeremiah Smith's gone.
Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, Ennis, Milan Graham, they're all gone.
if you let OG Walt go, and even Coach G, I would say you keep Coach G.
Yeah.
Caleb Downs is probably gone.
Yeah.
I think you have to try to keep Laurinaitis, OG Walt, Hartline. I think you have to keep Locke. And I'm not so sure you don't have to keep Keenan Bailey.
Yeah. God, I hate doing this, man. It's I will never call for a coach to be fired. Um, I don't feel I have the say or the power to ever speak that into existence. I guess this is something I will do. Hypothetically, though, if we ever got into a situation where the administration decided to move on, you've got some real questions you have to answer, right? And so it almost, because of NIL, because of the transfer portal, it becomes the NFL. Are we going to break this thing down to the studs? And if we do so, then we have to prepare for 30 plus people to walk out the door because we
Mm-hmm.
got rid of their position coach. And if you as an administration are okay with that, then do whatever you feel you need to do. But you need to be real selective. You need to be really smart as you navigate this to move on from a coach who has almost got a 90% win percentage, right? Who does have some trouble beating our biggest rival, which is not fun. We know people lose jobs over that, i.e., John Cooper, right? We know people get fired over that stuff. You better not miss. And you better make sure that they've got a plan to keep the Heartlines, to keep the Laurinaitis, to keep the OG Waltz, to keep these guys who are entrenched in Buckeye Nation, right? You better get it right. I was texting one of my cousins. He lives in Kansas. He's a diehard Buckeye fan, just like me, or just like us. And Ryan Day and Sharon Moore are the product of administrations not wanting to completely break the foundation. That's exactly what they are, right? You move on from Urban Meyer. What's the safe thing to do? They could have gone out and got any coach they wanted to, not named Nick Saban, right? They could have. But with that comes a lot of roster turnover. With that may come 2 or 3 rough years where you're only winning 6, 7, maybe 8 games, right? Until it gets turned around. And so, and Sharon Moore seeing that this year, right? I know they beat us, right? But they still only won 7 games this year. Okay. And so you just have to make sure that when you go out and get whoever it is, that you're okay with whatever decision you make. So that's a part of the conversation that I think people are often overlooking. And as Buckeye fans, I want us to understand this. And I'm not advocating for Coach Day to get fired. I'm not advocating for him to still be the head coach next year. Those are things that are outside of my control. But you have to ask yourself this question. We are upset right now, and we're 10-2. We're going to the playoffs. We were upset 2 years ago. We were 11-1. We lost to Michigan. We went to the playoffs, right? We were upset in 2020 when we didn't play Michigan, but we get to the national championship and we get embarrassed. People were calling for Day's head then. How could you run that defense? How could you do that? Imagine a world where there is a chance that you could only win 7 or 8 games. How are we going to feel then? That's a question that you need to ask yourself. I'm not saying people are wrong in their frustrations, wrong in their feelings. I get it. I'm just as frustrated too. I said things during today's game I've probably never said during any Buckeye game in my entire life, right? And I'm not proud of it. I need to ask for forgiveness later on the night. But I'm just saying, like, this is a tough, tough place to be for Buckeye Nation. And I get the frustration. We just need to make sure if this happens, everybody's on the same page and understand that it's going to take time to rebuild it back up. And so, that's where we are, man. And hopefully we go win a natty and everybody shuts up and everybody's happy. But that may not happen.
Yeah, I
So
mean it's a list that is only to me about 3 names long.
no doubt.
And I don't know that 2 of the 3 are even obtainable, and I don't know that the third one is the right move either. So I mean, that's the thing. Is yes, losing to Michigan sucks. There's no other way around it. But I had a buddy of ours text me today, and he goes, it hit me on the way home after the game, and he was at the game. And he goes, it doesn't mean as much anymore.
Yeah.
So, okay, yes, you lose to them, but you're still going to have a shot at a natty. The mentality's natty or bust. So if you can still win a natty, is it the end of the world? No, not at all. Does it justify the way that our fan base is acting today? No, not at all.
Yeah.
Is it frustrating? Sure, 100%. I got a text from another buddy who is not a Buckeye fan. And he goes, I really wish Ohio State would have a humbling season. He goes, Ohio State has been so good for so long that the younger parts of the Ohio State fan base, i.e. the more vocal ones, don't understand what it's like to be down.
Yeah.
They don't know how good they have it. Yes, Urban Meyer beat the team up north, but Urban Meyer also lost to some really super sucky teams. This is the first bad team Ryan Day's lost to.
Dude, I can tell you right now, when we lost to Iowa and Purdue, I felt way worse than I do about losing to Michigan today. And that's crazy to say that, but in the rivalry, we know anything can happen, right? It doesn't matter the record, just throw it out. Crazy things can happen in this game. You can win when you shouldn't win. You could, blow the team out when you shouldn't have blown. Like, those are things that can happen. But losing to Iowa and getting blown out by Iowa and
Smoked.
Purdue, those were I was down bad those weeks, right? And so I think Buckeye Nation, our fan base, we are so avid and we are so ride or die. These are our guys. This is the program, right? We love this team more than we love the Browns and the Bengals and all these things, man. Like, obviously we love them so much we started a podcast, right? Like, so like I get it. Like, Buckeye Nation is a very, very loyal, hard-nosed fan base. When you're doing well, we're going to love you. When you're doing not so well, we're going to let you know. You just got to make sure if this is what we were asking for, we got to get it right, man. Like you said, the list is very small. I see people bring up Vrabel. I don't think he wants to coach in college. He's made that very clear multiple times.
Well, he's going to be a number 1 draft pick for every NFL team that has an opening, including potentially the team he's currently employed by. I mean,
yeah. So
I think
you gotta, I don't know. Either way, we'll find a way to complain about it.
Oh, absolutely. So we'll see, and then obviously, kind of going back to game day things today, the giant black cloud at the end of the game, the skirmish, we'll call it.
Yeah.
Both teams are played apart, but if you're Ohio State, you don't want a flag planted. It's the same thing I said when Baker Mayfield did it. Win the game. But the flag plant thing has become kind of overplayed because you're not really planting it because it's turf. You're literally just going to go jab it at the ground. But those Michigan guys knew exactly what they were doing because of the timing they chose to do it.
Yeah.
You chose to do it when the Ohio State team had their backs to you because you arguably did or didn't want the smoke. And then obviously it got real chippy. We saw it. Um, I don't know that pepper spray needed to be deployed. Um, both guys from both sides got
Yeah.
maced.
The Michigan fans and the media saying, "Oh, Ohio State police pepper sprayed Michigan players." No, they also pepper sprayed Sonny Styles. They also pepper sprayed Cade McDonald. They also pepper sprayed a former coach here in Ohio, in Marion, Ohio. They also pepper sprayed a lot of people, and so stop with that nonsense. Okay, let's
Right.
just stop. It wasn't just because they're Michigan players. They pepper sprayed everybody.
Yeah. There were punches thrown. There were, but we also saw a Michigan coach take a swipe at Jeremiah Smith on the sideline. Now, granted, they got
Yep.
flagged for it, and it's the rivalry game. I get it. And obviously it's easy for some Ohio State fans and all the Michigan fans to say, it's the most fight Ohio State showed all day.
Yeah.
Not really, because the guy who led the charge as far as show and fight in that post-game scrum, Captain Jack,
Yeah.
I'll buy that dude a beer anytime.
Yeah, he gave us a chance to win, and he was ready to go down swinging after the game, man. I'm not mad at him.
But again, this to kind of tie it together, that was the moment where it was like Ryan Day was like a deer in the headlights, though. Like, I'm not a Ryan Day basher. You guys know that if you've listened to this, if you know me, but he didn't know what had even happened. You could literally read his lips with what happened. And then to watch Jack Sawyer be like distraught almost and not address it, that scares me.
Yeah. Yeah. And you saw Urban even say something after the game where he talked about, I've been in those situations and, I've had to grab my guys and get them out of there. Coach Tress has been in those situations and he's had to go in and grab those guys and get them out of there. I think Urban was very, what's the word I'm looking for? Strategic with why he said that. I think he was frustrated with Coach Day. I think there was, a little hidden message behind that, because Coach Day did look kind of stuck, and I get it. Like you don't expect that to happen, this melee. You don't expect players to get pepper sprayed, but at the same time, the actions of a few can get you fired from your job, right? That's a real thing. That looks like, because the media will spin it this way, but that looks like a lack of control of your program. And now every single rumor, that you've heard, that I've heard, fights in the locker room, all those things now seem a little bit more true because of the actions of certain players on your team after the game. Am I mad at the players for doing that stuff? No, I'm not. You're not going to disrespect the field. Obviously, you had 60 minutes to go out there and win the game, and so that wouldn't happen. But at the same time, like, I also get being 21, 22, 23 years old, right? You've lost to them 4 straight times. There's some frustration brewing. They knew exactly what they were doing. They were trying to disrespect you flat out. You weren't going to take that. Like, I get it. I get the frustration. I'm not going to be upset with the players, but it's not a good look, though.
No.
And when the people up in the press box and the suites, the presidential suites, and all those things that are making the decisions are looking down, that is the lasting image that they will have. How did this happen? Who is in charge? Right. And so I love to see the fight a little bit from, Jack Sawyer. I thought he played his heart out, man. He got the interception, thought that was going to win us the game. It didn't. He was frustrated on the sideline when the offense went 3-and-out right after that, and so that just boiled over. But, people also need to highlight the fact that there were Michigan and Ohio State players down on one knee praying together during that time too. And so, like, don't paint either program as to be this negative thing right now. Like, it was just a heated moment, and The Buckeyes felt like they needed to defend their own. Wish they would have done it, during the game, and we would have won. But it is what it is, man. Like I just know from a visual perspective, it doesn't look good for Coach Day.
No, not at all. And that's the part that stings. I mean, because again, awesome human being. Um, he's not just him. There are 10 other coaches on this staff who have a whole lot of work to do in the next 3 weeks. And that's assuming that all hell doesn't break loose as far as the playoff bracket goes. Which I turned my TV off, so I don't know the score of the Texas game.
17-7.
So, A&M winning that game would not be good for the playoff bracket. Our friends from Coral Gables in the 305 took one on the chin today.
That helped us.
But, of course, it gave our boy Honda Accord a microphone moment.
I know.
You know what? Talk your trash, Kyle.
Yeah, man.
You have played very, very good this year, but at the end of the day, you are playing the ACC defenses, which are essentially the Big 12 now.
Yeah.
Outside of Georgia Tech. Now, it would never happen because he's an alum, but I would almost have to put their coach on my list. I mean, that dude is a pack your lunch and put your work boots on and strap them up. Like,
yeah.
They got royally hosed last night, by the way.
It was a great game, though, man. It was fun to watch.
But can we talk about real quick how stupid the college? I love the fact that everybody gets a chance in college football overtime, but this whole exchanging 2-point conversions and having to walk, to the opposite end of the field,
it's terrible.
I think you're better off. Line of scrimmage is the 25 after the second overtime. Line of scrimmage is the 25, and you kick field goals. Move it back 5 yards every time.
Yeah, the 2-point thing, I don't like it. I'm not a fan of that.
No, it's dumb. So we kind of are in a holding pattern, as far as with what the future holds for this year's team. I assume they're going to make the playoffs. Probably still host a playoff game. So, with no Big Ten championship game next week, we won't have a before the battle episode for you. But we got signing day.
Yep.
So we might try to figure something out there.
We'll have some recruiting chips.
Yeah. So speaking of a nice bag of recruiting chips, spill the good news for the class of 26.
Yeah, man. So it's official, so I can say something. One of our players at Olentangy High School, Caden Gebhart, was at the Ohio State Michigan game today, and he officially was offered by the Buckeyes. He texted me right when he left Coach Day's office, man, and he was geeked. Obviously being in Ohio, man, that's an offer you always want. So he's got a good list of schools that he's got to start whittling down, but I know this was one that he wanted, so I'm proud of him, man. That's huge. Like, the potential of potentially having 3 guys that I've had the opportunity to coach on the same roster would be pretty sweet. So, but yeah, he's got a lot of good options out there for him, and I'm excited for him, man. But this one was fun, man. He texted me, obviously wished it was a win. It would have felt better. But he's pretty pumped up about it.
And I'm going to give you your flowers. You've been around that program less than a year, calendar wise, and he chose to text you as soon as he left. That's because you do such a good job, of connecting with these guys.
I appreciate that, man.
So shout out to you for that. I mean, that just speaks volumes. And that's not an easy district to break into. Let's be honest.
Heck no.
So shout out there. But yeah, we'll do some recruiting stuff this week. And we'll have CFP bracket release next Sunday.
Yep.
So that'll be perfect in time for next week's opening drive. But yeah, we wanted to get on here tonight and get this out of the way because we both were just kind of counting sheep, I guess you would say. Like
We needed a therapy session.
yeah, I mean, but just remember this. At the end of the day, it's a game. Involving 18 to 22-year-old men. These coaches have families. The sun's going to come up in about 10 hours. That's all you can ask. Yeah, it sucks. Don't let me downplay that enough. But as I've gotten older, I've definitely, 15 years ago, I'd be at the Doak right now, drinking my sorrows away.
Yeah, man.
I would be grumpy. People wouldn't talk to me for like 2 days.
Yeah.
But it's not worth it. It's really not.
Yeah. I had to remind myself of that today. And it's, my brother, God love him, man. He likes to be devil's advocate with me sometimes because, I always talk about the coach's perspective and, coaches don't try to run things that don't work, right? It's not what we try to go do. But he was like, you defend the coaches. You defend the coaches a lot. It's like, it's not defending the coaches. It's understanding what they're going through, what their families are going through, understanding that there is so much pressure that you can't live your life the way that you normally would live it. And I get it. That's what you sign up for when you're the head coach of Ohio State. Right? That's what you signed up for. You got to have big shoulders. You got to have thick skin. You got to be able to take it. But it doesn't make it easy, right? And so, I can empathize with what they go through. And then, for the players as well, man, like I feel even worse for them, especially those guys that came back. You know what I mean? Like they trusted the coaches to put them in the right spots, and that's not a fun place to be because then you start questioning things. Like it's just everything about this. I've said it a million times tonight. It's just tough when it comes to the player and the coach dynamic. And so, hopefully we bounce back, get a favorable matchup, go win a couple games, give ourselves a chance to go win a natty, and all will be forgiven, and we'll bounce back next year and we'll beat the piss out of Michigan. But until then, they got 365 days of bragging.
So just to put everything in perspective, though, I just pulled up FanDuel. Oregon is now the betting favorite to win the Natty at plus 350. Ohio State and Georgia are second at plus 450.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still there.
Yep.
But, that's why we're here. We try to look at all the sides. We try to, dive into it. And again, we're not insiders. We don't have connections, which is why, we didn't dive into the rumors that are out there. That would be like if we did this thing back in the day when you heard that Mike Vrabel put his fist through a whiteboard. I can now tell you Mike Vrabel put his fist through a whiteboard, but I can't tell you why. But because I don't know why. It's not that I'm withholding it, but things will come out. But actually, we were in such a hurry to start this, I forgot to give a shout out to Chris at the barn and Jake at Cornerstone before we started. Sorry, guys. But thank you guys. We knew this was going to be a little bit longer episode, but we wanted to pump it out for you. No Buckeye leaves, obviously, I don't think, because if I was given one, it'd be Jack Sawyer. Shout out Captain Jack. But with that, we will see you guys at some point in the middle of the week for some signing day stuff. I mean, some recruiting chips.
Recruiting chips.
We will see you guys then.